and call the meeting to order. Has everybody had a chance to read the minutes from the last meeting? So, is there any corrections, discussion, motion to approve? Moved by Gail. Second by David. All in favor? Visitors.
I am here on Birch City Council's behalf. We were just wondering if you guys were interested in selling your backhoe attachment for the skid steer. I think it's on your agenda.
I'd actually talked to a few of you on that, and we can just clear this up right now if you want to.
Yep.
So the deal with that was I talked to Birch City. I said, yeah, no problem, because I know I can still use it. I've got a fair price on it, $4,250. They said between $4,000 and $4,500. Initially, I told them, yeah, I'll sell it to you, and then I remembered that a couple years ago, somebody had actually said if it was ever available, they would like to buy it. It was a private owner, and part of the reason I didn't want to sell it is we wouldn't have it available to us. Where this would be a sale to Birch City, we work with Birch City, you know, whenever we need to or they need to or whatever. It seemed like a good fit, but I thought it was important because I was asked by someone else about that specific thing, that it should be something that should come in front of the City Council. So I told him a price of $4,250, just halfway in the middle of what New Holland had said it was worth. And this is the backhoe attachment for the little skid steer. What we did is we bought that New Holland backhoe. So I think we've used it maybe 2 or 3 times in the last 3 years. But if you need it, it's nice to have it available, and it still would be. So I would suggest we go ahead with it.
Any discussion on that?
Go ahead as in sell it to Birch City?
Correct.
Could I ask real quick? I'm sorry, I should know your name, but I don't.
Devin Conley.
Yeah.
Anybody have any objection to that or comments? Is there a motion to sell the backhoe?
It's a backhoe attachment for the skid steer.
For $4,250 to the city of Birch City?
So moved.
Moved by Larry.
Second.
Second by Gail. All in favor? All right.
I told Justin we'd be quick.
Cool. We just need to get with you on that.
What's that?
Get with you on that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
We will. All right. Thanks, guys.
Yep, thank you,
Thanks.
Devin. All right, we are going to move Lauren up. She's got to get back to taxes, so.
Lola sent me we got the ordinance in Word, ordinance 615. It does not match. It had repealed some of the ordinance 615 dealt with this enhanced cereal malt beverage for the cereal malt beverage provision, which was 3-201 et sec in the code book. It had been proposed by the League of Municipalities, and so it was signed, but what it did effectively was repeal all of the last 7 provisions about an application and what you do here. It just repealed 216 through 221 of that 3-201 and everything after it. So I went through and I took a look, and there were other different little nuances that were missing, and I sent it to Lila, and she had the idea after we'd gone through this that maybe what we do is we just repeal Ordinance 615 and reinstate the other ordinances, but add the definition that cereal malt beverage now means the state's definition of enhanced cereal malt beverage up to 6% alcohol, so that way it's covered, and we don't have to go through and add all those provisions back in. Otherwise, we can go through and add all those provisions back in. We can do whatever you want with that. I just think it needs to be a clean, if we're going to add to what we have, since we have it in Word, let's just add to the bottom of it, so we're not looking in this ordinance for this part of it and this ordinance for that part of it. Like, let's just keep it clean. The second thing that did, when I was looking at the application, is it says alcohol or cereal malt beverages be served or sold, which brought me to look at, was there anything at issue in the alcohol section, in the alcohol liquor section of the code book, which is 3-301 et sec. And there is no application, permit, anything procedure that there is for cereal malt beverage in alcohol, for liquor. So we should probably put that there.
But that is controlled by the state. Before we do that, if you go out and look at this, since the alcohol, it's all approved by the state,
Right.
so we don't have,
Right, but I still think that because we have a procedure for that in the cereal malt beverage, I still think we need to have something that says in there, in the code, if someone's looking at what our code is for that, that the procedure is pursuant to this,
gotcha.
that we're adopting that. Because if someone's looking and says, oh, they have this procedure for cereal malt beverage, but they don't have anything for liquor, that might be, I mean, I just think if we're going to go through and we're going to do an ordinance in Chapter 3, let's just fix it so that it says that. I mean, it was the only thing that I thought of, is that if somebody, we want to make it available and make the public knowledgeable about what they need to do, and I know that it is regulated by the state, but I still think we should have in there, you know, you will still have to do an application and it is governed by this. I mean, if we're going through Chapter 3 anyways. So that was my only thought on that, and I can
yeah.
certainly do that. I guess that's up to the council as to whether or not they want me to go forward, but
Yes.
okay.
Just makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean,
Clarifying.
I don't think clarification is ever a bad idea. And like I said, I know it is state regulated, but I think just the application procedure is the same. Instead of being governed by this, it's governed by that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Because I mean, there's no mention of an application even in the code.
Right.
I don't think I have anything else. Oh, Mike sent me an email. Did everyone get that email from Mike? On budgeting. Mike had sent me an email regarding the restoration, the street, the curbs. I think there was a preliminary amount. I just got it today, and I do apologize that I have not had a chance to thoroughly read it. It seems to me like he's making progress with the bond application, but I have not had a chance to review it in detail. But it does appear that progress is being made on that.
He did send, and this was on my clerk report, I'll just go ahead and mention it now, from the bond folks. Where did it go? Well, on the second, I had the payments on the initial information they sent was, I think you probably got it on the 20-year bond, and I thought that was too long. I didn't think that that's what had been discussed, was that long of a term on the bonds.
Yeah.
But the payments would be $50,000 on a 20-year term, and on a 15-year, they would be, the annual principal and interest would be $65, and on a 10-year, it would be $95. So,
What was the loan amount again? The bond amount?
812 and some odd thousand. So that needs to be decided. The council needs to decide on the term that they want to go on the bond issue.
Can you prepay it?
I think probably just like on the pool, probably after 7 years, but I don't know.
There's a time frame on it.
Mm-hmm. And then Mike pointed out we have to keep in mind that, the sales tax is going to be used for paying back these bonds, but if we're going to issue more bonds in a couple more years and as we do more streets, we don't want to, use all of our sales tax for this issue. So the sales tax we anticipate will bring in around $170,000 a year. So,
So probably a 15-year would, 15 or 20.
Yeah, but you need to have a balance of paying the least amount of interest, but having enough money available to pay further bonds when issued.
Well,
That's the balance, right, that you're looking for?
yeah,
You can stretch it out and have short payments, but then you're paying longer than you really need to.
right.
But you need the money available for
What's
issue
the
new ones.
interest difference?
I don't know that. This was pretty just starting information to get us started on the
But
discussion.
we don't need a decision on that right
They need to start moving on it, but I don't know, did Mike talk to you about how?
Mike sent me the attachments, and that's all I've heard, and I just got them. I think he sent them on Friday, and I just got them
Yeah.
today. I think I received them on Friday. I don't think I saw them until today. Yeah, I just have, please see the attached, and then I just have the documents. But he hasn't said anything to me about them or
Okay.
moving forward, so.
I would think maybe give it some thought over the next couple of weeks, and then I'll touch base with Mike and find out how soon we have to make this decision. I'm going to say
The
probably
information
soon.
everybody would need to know to do that would be, what are we gonna generate on the sales tax? What is our maximum bond issue that we can get? And what the payments are on each term, what the interest is, whether it's different for each term period, so you can make a true comparison. Okay, that should be it, shouldn't it?
What was the first thing you said?
Prepayment also.
Oh, that's right, I'll just listen.
Yeah, prepayment, yes.
Okay. I'll try to get that as quickly as I can. I'll get it out to everybody to look at. And
I had a question. I understand the bond issue, but if we get to a point where the city can prepay some of that, is that something we're going to want to look at doing?
I think they base that because you have to have a minimum amount of time that the bonds are out. So if it's going to be different, depending on how long you're going to,
Based on the term.
as far as how soon you can prepay, I believe so. Because I think you have to keep them for at least, I think it's more than half of the time period. It may change with the time period too, though.
I just was curious if we were able to have the funds available at a later date to where we could knock some of that out, especially if we're going into multiple projects.
We could probably have it there.
so that's all I had. I didn't really have a lot of detail.
One other thing before you leave, because this was mentioned the last time, was the trees, and in reference to the environmental study, we're going to be able to dodge the environmental study.
Okay.
Justine said, just don't send me anything, don't say nothing, just go ahead with that. Originally, it was included as part of the work, but it was only as a comment, not as an item, as we've said, so we was able to extract that out of it, and that will save us significantly. But because I mentioned that the last time as part of the tying to the money, it is not.
Okay.
We got to extract them from there, so that will help us get rid of those sooner and cheaper.
Great.
So we're bidding those out.
Yes, we will. That's part of money systems.
Oh.
It doesn't change in what I said from the last meeting in reference to the project and funding.
Anything else?
I don't have anything else. Does the council have any questions for me?
If not, do I hear a motion to approve the attorney report? By Gail, second by David, all in favor? All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you, Lauren.
Trash waiver application renewal.
Got a few of them back.
Lauren, back.
We have, these are all renewals. The first one is Dave Yost for the airport hangar. Not accessible to a trash truck. It's not in the city limits. It's not a business. There's no trash accumulated. They just use it for the airplanes. I can pass them around if you want to look at them. Clash Family LLC, they have those apartments, and this address is in the basement is basically what it is. So they already have trash service there, and so we've given them a waiver for this address because they already have trash. And it's this particular address. It's like something and a half. I wrote it down somewhere. It's not even a physical apartment. Pete Jensen, 122 North Quincy. The building is used for storage. Cody Crine, 1470 Road O. They have that big building there, and it's just used for animals, dogs, chickens, goats, and occasional tool usage. And then we have Althea LeBeau, 315 South College. They use that building just for storage. And these were all previously approved last year. And David, in case you probably don't know this, they have to renew these every year. So that's why they come through. And
Did Scott's make it in?
not yet.
Okay.
And I haven't gotten yours either.
Who's in the basket? Is the basket not coming down? I just...
Not very often. Not as often as it should. It's okay. But- Yeah, as I'm getting them, there's several more that haven't come in. So I'll have more next meeting, I'm sure.
Any questions on the draft waivers? Not, I hear a motion to approve. Moved by Derek, second by Larry. All in favor? Chicken permits.
Okay. These are also renewed every year. There's, I think, 5 people in town that have chickens. I've only gotten one renewal back. But they don't expire, I think, till the end of March. So they've got a little bit of time to get them back to me. But this is for Chris Labarge at 314 South College.
Did you ever check with you on the property across the alley here? Do they have a permit?
Who's the owner, do you know? I'm going to say no,
Okay.
because that would be, what is that
That's the
street?
basement house, it would be Webster.
I don't,
Like, literally, you should be able to hear them.
I've seen them. Well, I don't know. And I guess if they don't, we need to have somebody look into
And I
it.
can't remember when you were gone that day I called, because my niece and Jennifer were out here chasing a loose chicken in the street, so they didn't know where it came from, and there's a pen back here, and I called, and Jen wasn't for sure, and you were out, and I kind of dropped the ball on following up on that. But
I'm going to say no, because it's,
I've never inspected the property. Do that. No.
then no, because, yeah, the city superintendent's supposed to, on the initial one, and he's
I'm
actually,
checking, yeah.
he's supposed to go around
Once
and
you get past me.
sign these too,
do
but,
you want me to get you that address? or-
What's that?
Do you want me to get you the address?
So,
I can
Find
find
out.
it on GPS.
On the
When you
tax
leave,
waiver
you understand you put,
renewals
like,
and the
across
check
the
renewals.
alley,
Is it up to the individuals to know when that renewal comes up, or
No.
are they sent a notice?
they're sending notice, yep. Mobile home park licenses, trailer park licenses, the RV park licenses now, I send a notice out, I try to get them out at least 6 weeks in advance of when they're going to expire. So,
It's 210.
and then if I don't hear back from them, I'll follow up.
See, Larry, I just used my street address last time. What's that?
What app is that?
What's that? The ArcGIS, we've been messing with it and have GPS live now, so I just zoomed in and seen the address.
So Amanda, what do we do about that? Do we have to, chickens that aren't permitted?
Well, I typically go in with a 10 or 12 gauge, depending on the size of the chickens.
And have a
Next
barbecue.
I would say
Next
we
week.
basically observe the chickens, send them a notice that chicken's required by permit, what the code is, and respond within a given amount of days. And if they don't respond within that given amount of days, we show up to their door.
Now, do you want me to write a letter like that, or do we want the attorney to write a letter like that?
Honestly, I think it's a simple letter on the letterhead. This is the, I'll do it. I'll draft one.
Okay. All right. So we just,
Motion to approve the chicken permit for Labarge. Moved by Haley, second by Dara, all in favor? Mobile home park license.
this one's for Tommy Peter at 502 South Valley. They have space for 5 mobile homes. I don't think they have that many there. Yeah. But they do have a space for 5, and they've paid their fee, and it's a renewal.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Larry, second by Cale, all in favor? And shall rental agreement, special event application.
So, Lauren and I got together and looked these over, and The band shell rental agreement isn't much different than the one we have right now. And I didn't realize, but it actually has the disclaimer, the hold harmless somewhere. Yes, right there. On the backside, A. So that's already part of it. And so this is just for rental of the band shell. And the main thing that I changed was on that, whether it was a private event or a public event. And if it's a private event, this is all it is just this application. And if it's a public event, then we go to the special events application. One thing I want to ask while I'm thinking about it on this band shell, I had somebody ask, they had reserved the band shell for a wedding in April, but the wedding's going to be postponed. And we had always treated the rental as non-refundable, but it was asked if that could be reconsidered and perhaps have it's non-refundable. If you cancel X number of weeks ahead of time, it is refundable, that kind of a thing. That seems reasonable to me. Right now, we just have it just non-refundable. We certainly want a length of time in there. I think we had kind of talked about it, maybe 8 weeks. If you cancel, more than 8 weeks ahead, then you can get your money back.
Has it always been $75?
Yes. Yes. We generally, in the past, the council generally waives that for special events and stuff, but for private events, we haven't in the past waived that fee for private events.
So like on a wedding, you charge $75 to use the facilities.
Yeah, it's for the whole day.
Yeah.
So we can come back to that topic if you guys want to. We do need to kind of maybe decide tonight if we're going to change that. But that's really the only thing that changed on the band shell rental was the public or private. And then the special events application, the way that I put this together is I reached out to other communities on the clerk link and got some feedback and some input, put this together, and I tried to base it on things that we've done in the past with our own special events, and I also incorporated some things that I thought you might want to consider. That's what's on here. Obviously, everything is, you can take anything off that doesn't seem to make sense. On the back side, on the required documents checklist, did you guys have a chance to read this? I'd sent it out. The insurance coverage, I did put in there that it may be required, and it's up to the council to determine after the application's been submitted. That was kind of what you guys had talked about. The serving of alcohol, we don't, like Lauren said, we don't have anything in our code book for that right now, and she's going to add something. And with that said, that special event permit fee of $100, she and I, we just said, well, it should be at least the same as what we have already specified for the cereal malt beverage one, which is $100. That's already in our code. So that's why we made it $100. Out of that, that would pay for the resolution to get created. In the past, on the cereal malt beverage, the council has even waived that fee for, like, the alumni in the past. So, that would be, it needs to stay in there because it is part of our city code, but it could be waived if you chose to do that.
So if there's alcohol and cereal malt, is it 200?
Yeah, because those are two separate things. Why would you do that? Why would you have alcohol and cereal malt beverages?
Well, like when I've done them, we could have beer, or we could bring wine or whiskey or whatever.
But your beer wasn't C&B.
Oh, I know, but it's the liquor license that we use, and it's also beer, and now the beer is 6%.
The cereal malt beverages can't be sold under the alcoholic liquor license, though. Can they?
Well, I can sell my beer under the same license.
But it's...
But you
I don't
can
know
sell,
if there's a difference.
you can
There
sell,
is.
well, your microbrews would be higher than 6%.
No,
Some of them could be.
they could be.
Yes, but, so
But they're not.
you're allowed to sell those through your liquor license, you could not if you had a cereal malt beverage license.
Right, not if I didn't have, but the cereal malt now allows up to 6%. But none of my beers are even up to 6%. So how do you, I mean, we're getting in the weeds here.
I think you
You-
still
you
need
have
to
a
have
liquor-
both, because they're two separate things. In our code, they're two separate things.
I know that, but Bud Light now would also fall under cereal malt limitation, but I can buy the exact same Bud Light that someone with only a cereal malt license could sell, and sell it under my liquor license. Same beer,
But you would just pay the $100 for the,
liquor license.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
because that would cover everything. But if somebody applied for
Yeah,
a cereal
sure.
malt beverage, they couldn't sell wine or,
Right, yeah,
that
they
kind of
couldn't
stuff.
sell wine and
yes,
stuff.
they would be limited to beer under 6%.
Yeah.
So what's covered under cereal malt?
Well, now that the law's changed, it's almost like it all needs to be rewritten through the state. 'Cause up to 6% now is considered within the cereal malt guideline, right?
But until they do that, because that's
Yeah.
how they work, you have to stick with that.
Oh, yeah.
But you're right,
Mhm.
it's behind.
It's a gray area. All right, never mind.
The vendor list, you'll see I scratched some stuff out. That's because I talked to the Department of Revenue today. What my responsibility is, the event organizer is responsible for the vendors. Some cities ask for a list of the vendors from the special event people, organizers, but that's not required by the state. He said all he needs from me is just the name of the event and the contact, the coordinator of the event, and then I give him that information, and the Department of Revenue reaches out to the event organizer and gets them the sales tax packets and takes care of all of that. So it's not something that I need to do. I don't need to know who the vendors are or any of that. So that's why I scratched all that out. The section about obtaining permission, so I had to think broadly on this because it's not just the park that people might want to have a special event. You know, they might want to have a special event down Main Street, might want to have a special event somewhere else in town. So I was trying to just think broadly on that and what they might need to have if they were going to do vendors up and down Main Street. And the permission from businesses would be, I think, important. They may not want somebody selling in front of their store. So that's why I put that in there. I don't know. Looking for input.
It's long and wordy enough, we ought to read it and come back.
I think I tried to keep it as simple as possible, but cover the bases that we needed to cover. Oh, but JR, I had asked you about on the one side, you know, the electricity. Do we need that? Do you need to know if they need electricity? Does that need to be on there?
That's the details of asking for the event, I would say. You know what I mean? If they need it, they should say it if they're doing the event, whatever that is.
Okay.
And where is that at?
So that's on the front page
Page
of the
12.
special events application. Page 1,
Oh,
about halfway down.
okay.
Where, you know, do you need barricades?
Mhm.
And with this, I would hand out a map. I would give them a map of our city, and so that they could use that if they wanted to draw where they're wanting it roped off, or they do that now. Gail's done that where he's drawn his own map, but so
The applicant sponsor, they've got to go to the business owners and get consent from them. Is there already a pre-made form that they can just have the business owner sign to offer the consent, or is it just by word, or?
so that would be up to you guys. Right now, we have nothing because we didn't have this in place, and you know that would only be if that's up and down Main Street. But if you feel like that would be necessary, we can create that.
How many events do we have that are
None, but I had somebody ask, so it was
Yeah.
like it
Might be
could,
one this year.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's never come up before, has it?
No, I mean, we've had like the
Hear complaints.
Oktoberfest but we didn't have something in place that you needed.
But I think that's why they go for application too, because you can't cover everything in a document. I mean, you know what I mean? They can come with special requests, special provisions. That's why we have 12 pages.
It's two.
And when it used to be the chamber, the chamber businesses were all kind of involved, on Main Street and stuff, when they had a lot of the up and down, roped off Main Street events. And so I think they kind of all had proved themselves, at that time, the chamber.
I think we're kind of talking more like transient vendors that come in just for this special event. Well, we've had some for like the car show or motorcycle.
Oh, I see what you mean.
And if they're going to park in front of Owens, probably ought to have Owens' permission to do so.
Public street. Probably
Yes.
Still
But
will
when-
hear about it.
Well, I mean, I can take that out if you don't think that that's...
You're saying that would be allowed?
What's that? Oh, no, I'm just pointing out it's public property. I mean, it's,
I think it's common courtesy to
I do too.
ask.
oh, without a doubt, I'm just kidding. But it's,
There's something in this.
I guess I'd like to review this a little bit before we make an all-out approval. We don't have anything pending for the application, but I'd like to look at it a little bit.
The alumni, they're going to be the first ones that will probably use this, but I talked to Cale today and I let him know what we were doing and that there might be...
But even if this was approved, we use our normal thing, if that was the case.
Yeah, but we don't have anything.
We do, we have a city council that can say, yes, you can.
Well, that's true, yes.
Is
yes.
the car
As
show
people
going
tend to pass.
that'd be...
So I haven't even heard from the car show yet, but I've
So
got him on the
Scott wanted me to
calendar.
make sure that on the band shell as well, that and there was one other thing. He said something else.
Motorcycle.
Oh, yeah, the motorcycle.
Yeah, I got them all on the calendar,
Okay.
yes.
That was, he just wanted me to mention that.
Absolutely, just we haven't gotten anything, filled out, but, so.
We'll just table this till next time and that was...
Should we go ahead and do the refundable deposit?
Oh, yeah, so
We'll
that
probably
I can,
just do it, right? 6 weeks?
it's up to you guys.
I think it's kind of discretionary, in my opinion. They couldn't do the wedding, right? So what was the...
Right. They're-
Refund it. They might come back and do it later or something?
So are you saying that we want to, as a standard procedure then for everybody, do we just leave it as non-refundable and address it if they ask? Or say that it's refundable up to 6 weeks before the event, or...
That's what I was thinking. Let it be refundable.
Yeah, a time.
6 weeks, or 8 weeks, whatever.
These guys, I mean, it's 2 months out for them,
So
so...
are they changing it or canceling it?
For right now, I think they're just postponing the wedding. They
So
don't
if
have
we used to
another
rebook
plan.
it, they could use their same money for it too.
But I don't think they know what they're doing, yeah,
Just-
with these particular folks.
Gotcha.
Whatever we vote on, I probably need to abstain. I'm the one counseling these two. I can say that I've suggested they postpone, and they are, but they are still moving towards. So I don't know if they still intend on, and I haven't talked to them about this. This was probably mom and dad's affairs, but I think they're still planning on doing it later, but I don't know that for sure.
It would be complicated if we hold their money.
Yeah, I think it's only right to refund.
Yeah.
So we just want to leave it on a case-by-case basis
Yeah.
on, because it could be something like this come up, or what if it's weather that,
Well, my only concern with that is if somebody calls and it's a week later, it's a week before, and they want to cancel, because now,
yeah.
and,
Right.
and they say, well, you did it before.
You could have booked it for something else.
That's why we give it decent
That's,
timeframe.
so that's what I'm asking, can we put something like that on there?
6 weeks sounds
Gail said
good.
6 weeks.
I think that sounds good.
Okay,
There's plenty of time to let someone else reserve it
Mm-hmm.
for an event that's planned out.
okay.
At least gives you the option for somebody else to use it.
Yeah. Not that it's popular space to rent.
Well, speaking of that, I've got
Still.
2 more that I'm going to ask for approval of, for 2 more weddings. There's actually 3. This has been a popular place this year for weddings,
So never sure.
that's in my clerk report, so, okay, I will update that.
Chair, I was asked, if someone has a professional paint sprayer, can they go up and just spray those seats at the band shell? Or is that going to affect us having to have it done a certain way?
It's just covering it up. I mean, there's so much of what, everything needs to be removed.
I know, but they say it's just dingy looking now. They say they'd like to just go and put a coat of paint on it. I said, I don't know. I know you can get into the weeds and that with how they want it to go back. Just so-so.
You have a historical, yeah, is that, need permission?
Can we do it at night?
I don't know, I mean, that, it brings up a good point though, so we're supposed to hear back from Bauman about that, removal and repainting of that. See, on the historical thing, that wasn't necessarily, the stuff that was put on, that was not part of the historical state that it was in, even though it was on there after the fact. So I know we can go back to the concrete, I think we can paint it, and I wasn't even gonna ask. Now, whether we wanna go in and paint it prior to attempting to do the work to remove it, I don't know. I agree, it looks bad, and why don't I get a hold of Kevin, because the main thing was to get a price in front of the council to consider stripping it and painting it, and I don't have that information back from him yet. I was supposed to 2 meetings ago, I think. So let's meet. I don't know, I don't know how to answer. I wish we could make them look better in the meantime as well, but.
Property cleanup? I guess we're done with that, right? We're gonna-
Yeah, I'll table, just look at it and give
Yeah.
input if you have some, and
Okay, next, you know, we'll send it to next time.
What?
Property cleanup.
Well, I was texting, but it was to Kevin Bauman. I don't have anything other than that one property that we do have the condemnation on. It's barely progressing. I haven't had any contact, and I don't have any contact the other direction, so I was going to look at the proceedings on that thing and make contact. I know they're not past their 60 days, but
Which property?
I told it. That's the only one we have currently. And again, I've been waiting to re-engage new ones with Lauren getting started in here. We have plenty to do, but now she's in taxes, so I kind of hate to do that. But we've got a list that we need to get working on. I guess I'll talk to her about those. We might get the first things out on them.
Have you or Cody had a conversation with Kevin on it? With Kevin on it, you guys had any
No.
conversation?
I have not. I don't know if Cody has. Has anybody contacted Cody in reference to it? Hmm?
With Kelly?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
I wasn't sure if it was you or Cody, just, or check with you.
Well, and as you can see, it's such a moving pile of crap. I mean,
I just thought we were gonna kind of, not leave Lauren out of it, but I mean, see if we could take care of it without having to involve her.
let me see what Cody's comfortable with. I mean, because what he's basically doing is storing junk temporarily on the streets.
Still piles of busted glass and parts on the street. Also, this city's
Let me get with Cody and see what he's comfortable with. I mean, we have code violations, but they're there, they're gone, they're there, they're gone. The junk, we can address that and we'll go out and sweep it up and then do it again. But let me see what Cody's comfortable with doing, because anything other than dropping the hammer on Kelly, he's just gonna keep playing. So, let me talk to Cody about it. Okay.
Project spending?
Got the little netbook thing here. Any other good stuff? Those in there, it's good one to look. We use Google Drive, right? Or you can put things on Google Drive and you can share them.
I will, if someone will help me figure it out, yes.
I bet the other Cody probably knows how to use it.
She might. But she wouldn't be the one putting the stuff out there, but she could. It can't be hard. I
No, it's
played
so
with it
easy.
before. Was it Google Drive? No, it
No,
was
it's
Dropbox.
Dropbox, yeah.
But it works the same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not. Yes, if somebody will teach me how to do it.
I can be your guinea pig.
Yes, like we did before.
So
on
you'll go
Dropbox.
in and get them all set up?
I haven't used it, but I can
Me?
play back and forth.
Or
On Google-
whomever,
Google
or
Drive.
whoever you're buying them
I don't
from.
know
Oh,
that-
this is Amazon.
That's
It's
what it was
Amazon,
on.
yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Unless you want to go through Matt.
what did you price them
No.
at?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay, I just,
$249 on Amazon right now. But honestly, I don't think there's really anything to set up except Google Drive. Really. I mean, it's a Chromebook. There's no Windows to it. It's all Google operating system. You might set up a username and ID, but that's about it. I don't know if when we do this, if we should set them up under. We use all of our city email addresses to register with them.
That would make sense to
That'd be a good
me.
idea.
He didn't want one.
I would think so, yeah.
Mine's locked again. I
You
don't know
can't
what-
get logged in?
I called him that day, got unlocked, and the next time I tried to log in, it was locked again. I don't know what to do.
Locked as in invalid password,
It
or?
won't let me log in yet.
Well, we can work with that tomorrow. I can give him a call, find out what's going on.
Is there Wi-Fi in here?
Yes.
Okay.
If you're gonna ask for the password, I don't know what it is.
Not yet. We'll need it for these. though. Okay.
So are we moving forward with ordering these then?
Do you guys are fine with it? Do we
And we're
decide
getting
how
just
many?
for the council?
And Lauren and myself. Scott
She
didn't.
wanted one, or I thought she had her own?
No, she said she would
Just
like
take
one,
one.
yeah.
Separate city.
Scott says no, and JR
Right,
said
you
no.
can't use one.
So 7.
Yeah, I can just use.
Is this going to provide me any more function than I have now with my MacBook Pro or my iPad?
Or with your
Well,
phone? That was
Yeah,
one of my
because
questions
you
too.
won't have a pile of papers every meeting.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it'll be soft
It's
copy.
like, it's city business, soft copy for everything.
Yeah, that'd be-
Yeah, all this stuff would be,
Yeah.
Okay.
you'd have to be able to view it on your,
And we can, put notes on everything without needing a pen full or a cup full of pens.
And I suppose whenever you do your notes,
That don't work half the time.
Right.
whenever you do the notes in the minutes and stuff, we can get those on kind of more real time, couldn't we?
what do you mean?
It'd be,
Like after we do our meeting tonight, you with your
Uh,
notes.
I do not write up my minutes right away, no.
Okay, okay.
No. No, you won't get those any sooner than you do
Okay.
now.
basically, we're just talking.
And it's not
about-
relevant, it's not, yeah.
But if there was something like,
He
this
just wants to
document
hold
would be
her
out there,
information.
if you wanted to go back through old minutes or whatever, you could
Right.
search.
I don't have
you could
anything
find
else to
Right.
do.
Instead of going home through that, like, big,
Yeah.
that just keeps
Basically,
growing
the
and growing and
paperwork.
growing.
Well, yeah, that's it. Okay.
I could make an effort to get the unimproved minutes
No, no,
to you
I mean, it's
sooner.
not-
No.
Well, then if you guys want to make a motion up to 2,000, that would be plenty. I don't know, I think it's free shipping, it looks like, and it's probably tax. I don't have a tax exempt log with Amazon, so, but that should be.
Could you get it tax exempt?
Probably as a government entity, maybe.
Yeah,
The county has one set
I
up.
could look into that.
I don't know what it would take to set one up.
I don't know, but I can look into that.
Well, you can register the city under an Amazon business account.
We have that already.
Oh, okay, well then.
Is it already taxed as a zip?
No. Well, I can take care of that, and I can take care of getting these ordered if you guys will authorize up to $2,000, and I'll get it taken care of, because it's not going to be that much. It's going to be less than that, but I don't have exact, because I don't know what the tax, well, I guess it'd be 8.5%.
Does everybody think this is a good idea?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Do I hear a motion to approve the purchase of 7 Chromebooks not to exceed 2,000?
So moved.
Moved by Gail.
Second.
Second? All in favor? We can cross that off of the project spending, right? I've had kind of a disheartening conversation with the state of Kansas. A week ago Friday, after our last meeting, when they had called and asked if the city would approve or support going from a 4-lane to a 3-lane, that they would come in and eliminate the access road. I called Jeff Stewart after our last meeting and told him that the city, we were interested, we wanted to know more of what their thought process was, and it kind of just took a 180 on me. I mean, it just went back to, first of all, they didn't care if it was 4-lane or 3-lane, because I said, it's your highway, what do you want to do? You guys can do it, and they said they don't care, it doesn't have to be 3-lane, that it can be 4-lane, 3-lane, they don't really care. And he had implied that Mike Day, a city attorney, had said that the city owns the access road, and I said, no, we have never once claimed that we own it, and it's our responsibility. And he said if we were not willing to take ownership of the access road, then we need to take a timeout, and we need to go back to the drawing board, and it's a legal matter, and we need to contact their... So I'm like, all I did was ask for more detailed information as far as what the plan was, and it just...
Isn't this the second time they've done a 180 on
This
this?
is completely reminiscent of years ago when it started with me, and they did the exact same thing. You come to a point, they start slinging how you made promises this, you agreed to that, and they just did the exact same thing to Amanda. So I think there's a simple direction for us to go. Based on history, you can't trust anything they say. And, you can't plan anything. I think it's really important that we establish that it's their property, and I think that's a title search, right?
That's kind of where, and I've just visited briefly with Lauren. I know she's busy with taxes, and I'm busy trying to get valuation notices out. Her and I talked just briefly today. Next week, next week we're going to schedule a time to where I can sit down with her, make sure she's up to date with what Mike has sent. I will take all the documentation that I have to get her up to speed, and what I visited with JR a little bit, maybe it's just not just getting Sandra Braceland or somebody to do title, research to figure out who actually owns it, that we have something to go back and say, this is not our property. Nowhere does it state that it's a city right-of-way, city ownership, nothing, and go back to their attorneys. I don't know what else to do. I mean, it was just kind of a...
It's the only wise money we could spend, is to prove that we don't own the property. And then the argument can go anywhere from there. We can get somebody, we can either convince them that it is their problem and that they need to address this or find a way to address it, or establish to them, yes, it is your property, and contact an attorney that's used to working municipal to state resolutions, because we can't afford to cave. We just can't
Right.
do that. We don't have the ability.
When you two have talked to them in the past, I mean, it's face-to-face, correct?
Some,
So,
oh, yes.
yeah.
Can you request to have that meeting to be documented?
Yeah,
Or does it not
I mean,
matter?
Well, yeah, I mean, even by email, you know, by their documentation that they provide and stuff, yeah. I mean, it's what's said once and promised is completely forgotten once they've pulled the rug out like this. A good example of that is so a long time ago, they weren't taking care of the islands. We sent them notification, please take care of the islands, we try to take care of our city. Yeah, they said, the islands are yours, we no longer have to do it, here's the state statute. We reluctantly thought, well, we can obviously keep it mowed at least, so we did it. Years later, so the crossovers in the frontage road come and they're just turning to crap. And so we notified them, you must do something. JR agreed that you took those over when you took the islands. No. I got into a yelling match with the individual I'd worked with, and I haven't actually talked to anybody at the state since then, for the simple fact of, you know, that's how they work.
Right.
And it's very frustrating because you're told things and leading up, and we're a team and we're working on it. Oh, we got to hurry up and get this application in, and you know, all the way up to these great promises, and then all the way back to nothing. So it doesn't surprise me at all. I was shocked how far Amanda was getting. Unfortunately, it went right back to the route it went with me. So I think we need some legal documentation because they respond to nothing other than,
Right.
you know, we don't have to do anything.
Because of the
That's
statute,
their-
and the statute.
And the statute does not apply. They can't, the thing that I
Trying to beat
keep
you into
trying to
submission.
get them to provide us, and all the way up to that through,
Right.
through the attorney, was show us another town with this large of a burden based on improvements that was done by the state. Show us how it was done. There's nothing else like it in the state. There isn't another example. PEMCO, Gerald DeBoer, that was the engineer they sent to me and Amanda to try to figure out a resolution. And the one question I asked him is find another example of it. I understand, you know, they want to work through you, but find us one other example. There isn't one. I mean, they want it to go away. They just want us to say yes. And we can't. Well,
Yeah.
better not.
It was just, you have to take ownership, or, I don't know, it's like, and then to say that Mike Day, what he said, he didn't say Mike, but he said your city attorney, in his correspondence with their legal team, said that it's ours, or we took ownership. I said, I apologize, and said, if that's the implication that you guys got, I apologize, because that's not the stance of the city, nor was that what he implied, but they're trying to just...
We don't have anything to lose. We're back to ground zero. We tried playing nice. Amanda tried for a long period of time. Seemed like something was getting somewhere, but we need
And it was to a point of, we will
legal
do
rights.
this, as long as you agree to the 3-lane, and then we don't care if it's 3-lane or 4-lane, and if you don't take ownership, we're not doing anything. It was just like, how
Remember, we
go
kept
over-
saying, why do they keep asking us about the 3-lane? They're the ones that want to do that.
Yeah.
And then it came up as this thing where they don't
don't
even
even-
interested
yeah.
in doing it. It's like, I don't think we ever actually.
It was a very, like I said, it was very, just...
Reminiscent.
Yeah, so...
Deja vu for me.
Anyways, I guess that would be my recommendation, is let me get with Lauren and get her up to speed, and that way, at least get the city attorney up to speed with everything and get her all the documentation, and I think we maybe look to see what it would cost us to do some title work on it and see actual ownership, and then that would maybe
But
get
if
something.
we even show actual ownership, they're still going to be the same way. Oh, hey, we'll do a quick claim deed back to you. You know, I mean.
Which we wouldn't accept, and
Right,
nor would the
but-
owners up there. And in fact, if you end up in a courtroom because of it, and you have the surveyed property by title search that is their property, it's their responsibility.
Mhm.
Their statutes won't hold up. I don't think.
I don't know.
And I've already, the
Well,
city's never met,
sure.
because I've already went through the records over in the courthouse, and there's nowhere ever that the city was ever involved in ownership or right-of-ways or anything that I can find.
Mhm.
Back in the 30s, the property was deeded to the state. The actual real estate was deeded for the maintenance, construction, drainage, blah, 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 of a highway.
But there's a pattern, a history pattern too, with the state of gifting the city with the property along the area up there, and unfortunately, the city accepting, I don't know if I should say unfortunately, but the roadside restrooms, that was all built by the state. which turned out to be a good deal for the EMS building. That used to be a port of entry. Now it's the cities, the parking area and showers behind. That was all improved by the state when they was doing Bonnie Dam. Seems like it fits in the date. It doesn't matter. But they had this huge facility, road system, everything built, and have a pattern of having given back to the city. And I think it's just time it stops. I mean, you can't. It's too much. There's too much there. It's simply not something you can just, we can tear down the roadside park or the thing up there or abandon it, and, but you literally can't get into town without these crossovers, islands, and the frontage road, and it's their property, so.
Yeah, you hope it doesn't cause an accident or something, I mean.
And we brought that up the last time the potholes got big. We actually went and filled some things for the simple fact of public safety, worried about a motorcycle wrecking in it. Of course, then they come in angry at the city for putting millings in the things, dug it out and put asphalt in it after stating they weren't going to do it. So this is just an ongoing forever. We need something more than what we think we know and our opinions. I think we need the legal description and some facts.
As far as it's not a safety concern. That was the first thing I got from the state to where, it is a safety concern. And it went from, you have your attorney contact our attorney. And so we did that. And then it was like, you and I can work this out. We don't need to get the attorneys involved. And now we're back to, if you don't take ownership, then it's a legal matter. And I'm just like, it's just back and forth. And the story has constantly changed from the very beginning. It just changes, so.
But the one thing that we should be able to make undisputable is it's your property. And I think once that's established, whether it's by negotiation or court of law, it's their property. That would seem to be good, strong ground to stand on for this issue. So. And of course, we didn't want to go that route. We lost ground when I was working on it, and then Amanda take over. You don't want to go chasing that route if you're thinking you're actually getting somewhere. But
and it shouldn't take that much of a saga to find that out, should it? Yeah.
How soon can we get her on it?
We'll probably just have to, let me visit with Lauren first to get her up to speed, and then we can maybe have Sandra get a bid for the next meeting.
Yeah. I think the best way to describe the background is the little detail and lots of broken promises as possible.
Come on, JR, I've got a stack of paper like this
do.
at home. Because I've done a lot of the research and got copies of stuff.
I think no matter what, we need to have her do the search.
That's what I.
Right.
No matter what anybody says, just so we know.
And again, it goes back to, the state, I think, will say it doesn't matter. Here's the statute we go by. And that's where I think we get, and please don't think I'm taking anything away from the city attorney, but somebody has done municipal disputes with the state specifically, because there's going to be cases out there where little cities didn't just say yes, and or big ones. There's going to be cases to go by. And I can't imagine it wouldn't be in our favor.
But I'm in agreement with you, whatever it takes, as far as, I think, dollar-wise, I think getting Sandra to figure that out for us would be wise.
You want me to check with her and have her get a estimate or a bid for that?
Sandra?
Yeah.
Not to exceed 2,000. If it does, talk to us. I don't know. Just let's get it moving.
Yeah.
We're stuck.
Yeah.
Is there
Yeah.
If that's
motion
okay.
if she's willing to take it, but,
Yep.
yeah. Second. Second by David, all in favor? I'll reach out to Sandra then.
Don't tell her I said we're not going to exceed 2,000 because then it's going to cost $19.95. I just thought of that. Careful on what you put down.
Well, but if it's going to be more than that, we have to.
Of course, but, we yeah. I don't know, I think it's better than going back and forth, and let's get on the meeting.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Anything else on the projects then? Anything? Street project.
The only thing I had to mention, which was that.
And so you're going to put that out for bid, is that what you said?
Yes.
As far as the tree
Yeah,
removal?
And we'll just do that completely in-house, mark them, and we'll just run something in the local paper. I think that can be done locally.
Okay.
The other thing is I would imagine the environment, do we notify the people with the curb and gutter that it is going through? How did we address them earlier when we said, if the project's approved, you will have this amount? We should look at that and see whether there needs to be a courtesy follow-up, because that would be the next thing we could go, let's look at those. I think that's the only other outside of the grant, but yet affecting it that we have, I think.
Yeah, because they'll have to make a decision whether they want to pay for it outright or put it, assess
Exactly.
their taxes.
And they'll need to request to have it put on the tax roll if that's the case. So we need to get some correspondence out there just to communicate with them that it's going forward. And review how it was addressed in the documents. I don't remember.
I think we just said that their property had X amount of curb and gutter at an approximate cost of this, and it could be assessed to taxes up to 7 years. But I'll look at all that. But we gave them the details in the initial letter.
Okay.
So
Regardless, we should follow up with them directly because we're taking their money as part of the project in some
Right.
form. So
Right.
let's take a look at it.
Is that it?
Yeah,
Building
I don't know.
permits?
Lost for a minute. No, I did what prompted. Yes, I did.
And GR, something that we can do on these building permits, if you know which ones you're bringing to the meeting, by like the Friday before, I can get them on the Google Docs like we're talking about, and you wouldn't have to
Just
pass them.
copy.
Because we make copies
And
of
that way,
them.
there's just questions. Somebody can say, I got a question on that. So, Anyway.
So,
On the street project, didn't we have one homeowner with almost all their curb being replaced?
On Jenison. Just north of
That's
the
going
park.
to cost them, or?
It was around 4,000 something, I think. Put that over 10 years. I think, I know we had this discussion before about it. You may give extra time for somebody who has a higher burden.
Yeah,
I think it was
I
up
guess
to
we
7
could-
years at 4%.
Was it?
But didn't we discuss if it was?
Yeah,
if
we
it was,
did.
we
If
would
that if
extend
it,
it?
in
We
that
might
The ones that
have.
Had the biggest
extreme
burden.
situation, we might have to extend the time period. I'm sure we discussed
Yeah.
that.
Probably.
But let's look at our notification, who they are, because we need to notify them of the trees are being removed too at our cost, but then the follow-up to that for all of them with the curb and gutter.
Okay.
So let's just look at the documents that we sent out and go from there.
Okay.
And I guess we probably should consult Justine just for the simple fact that it is part of the project. I think it is, I know it's in there. Not funded by, it says right in there, it's funded by the homeowners. But just make sure we're okay. We don't give out notices and find out we have to do something different.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess let's go through that filter first. And then see what we have.
What he's putting that in, okay.
The what?
The bench around,
Yeah.
where it's on the lot.
The northwest corner.
We have a question about that address, because I think you just looked that up, the 605, because Lila doesn't have it, and I don't have it, and dispatch doesn't have it. And looking at that, it depends on where the building site and/or access point to drive in would be, as far as if that number would make sense or not.
It actually would make sense, because, well, not really, because the ASCS is 600, and it shows Wilbur is 700. And it's right there.
Well, see, this is 602, 605 would be.
Oh, wait a minute.
You're
okay, so he's putting in a bin that looks, is for an office right there.
But then you put the bin on the
He
street.
is also over there, but this is a functional wheat grain bin, and this is an office one that he's putting in right
But
in
just for
the
the address for this location, because I'm assuming how electricity or something.
I would say it would have to be a 500.
Well,
Or the whole thing would be a
This could be
600.
601, this is right, I can't remember, well, this possibly could be 601.
Let me find out. I mean, if he just made it up, it's not a big deal, we'll just change it to
Yeah,
whatever
like I
it needs to
said,
be.
because Eric asked me and Lila didn't have anything and I didn't have
It was
anything,
made
so we're
out.
not really for sure where 601 is.
But I-
605 is actually coming up, this is what should be going this way.
6 foot, I don't know why that's 6 foot.
It's a big deal.
And that's, yeah, that's what the application says.
These were
Right,
supposed to
Lila,
be
you
laid
have
over
some
off
too?
the 911.
For the
Yes,
one big jerky one.
that sounds
Just
right.
that one.
Yeah,
I
that is
started.
700.
Is that what it is?
Mhm.
You know, highway. This is the one.
Okay.
West Highway 36.
These addresses might be right there. These was the original ones from the original 911.
This one was Cherry Hill building. That Cherry Hill? Yeah. I can't remember what it is.
Yes, that's Cherry. Yes.
Anyways, yeah,
City costs, but how do you be
I guess you can take a look or
Okay.
contact me, we can take a look. and
It would definitely be
sure.
a 500 or 600, but I think if you're gonna have the whole lot as a single address, you need to pick the one that makes sense.
Yeah.
And consider whether it would ever be partitioned off, which I doubt it will be, you know.
So I don't
I don't think they did that one.
He has every intention of putting all the grain bins on the north edge there, and using the fill from this side, bringing it down and having them stacked on the northern edge.
Okay, yeah, we can take a look at it.
Yeah.
So motion to approve the building permits,
So,
moved by Gail, second by David, all in favor? Superintendent report.
Well, at the power plant, each of the engines is fixed, but it's old and tired, and we're getting a price on a replacement. They're supposed to last up to 30 years, that one's 37, so we're looking at pricing the boiler to be replaced. The repairs it was on, it was not real expensive, but obviously we need an operation. Ward Electric is the electrical contractor that was the low bidder when we, actually I think both times that we bid out the electrical line work for the distribution system. I made contact with them and the other one, I can't think of the other one's name, IES. And I've kind of gotten comfortable with Ward Electric on negotiating some work to be done, reduced significantly from the bid price. They take a lot into account for the unforeseeables in bidding, and are they actually prefer doing what we call dot work. It's a given amount of dollars for a given amount of work over a period of time. Their bid to do both feeders 1 and 3 was $860 some thousand. In talking about cutting the cost, we had originally had that because the contractor usually likes to supply their own material. But if the city was to buy the material, that takes away the markup of the 15% that they put on it. Now, typically, when you say you supply it, they mark it up anyway because they have to deal with your headaches. But Ward wants to, I believe, they actually want to work with us. What I would like to do is get everybody comfortable with it and set aside a dollar value and basically do a pilot project that's significantly less than the entire thing, but a bit of a test drive where the city orders the material, they come do the work, reanalyze it at that point in time and make sure it's the right thing to go forward. They've done this with Sharon Springs, they've done it, and that's, for some reason that's the only one that comes to mind right away, but a lot of small towns they do this in. That doesn't mean it monetarily works out as a great deal, but they do it. So it's nothing, we're not reinventing the wheel. We are behind in doing the work on the electrical work. We tried the 2-bid process, and we're literally 2 to 3 years behind where we said we was going to be just by not being able to get a contractor there. That being said, What I would like to do is have the city get the material for the entire project, of which we are getting prices on currently. So I don't know if authorizing money is the right thing to do at this meeting, but what I have in my head is authorizing $300,000 to go towards the electrical system. In doing that, we're going to order material that covers the whole project, but only do, the work that would fill in that dollar value. That's what I kind of have in mind. I would be more than comfortable waiting until we get the actual price back on the material that the city would supply. When we bid that out, we gave the information of Stannion to all the contractors. The board didn't use them. They used, who they would normally use for their supply. If the city's buying it, I think we have to price it through Stannion. It's just a responsible thing to do. As much money and things coming in, that's our local guy. So we're working on getting that pricing now. But I guess just to get you comfortable with it, I'm looking at least at $300,000 to get all the material and then a fixed amount of work done as a pilot project with Board Electric.
What do you mean by fixed amount? What do you mean by fixed?
So once say it's $150,000 worth of material, then we'd be doing $150,000 worth of time and equipment. What time and equipment is, they just basically rent you the equipment and the wage rate for whatever work it is to get done. And you still have the bid units that you can go by. So that's the thing to go back and compare to. But like he said, it'll be significantly less when they take the foreseeables out of it and do it in small amounts.
What about the excess material? What do you do with that?
So we'll order the material in the hopes that we continue this relationship over the next 3 years to complete the entire project that we originally set out to do.
Is it going to be more expensive to do smaller portions than doing a bigger project?
That's why I'm looking for the larger dollar value, because I don't want to get, and I have no idea what the materials on are. I haven't even looked at the material list for the thing. But I don't want to get, $200,000 worth of material, get $100,000 worth of time and equipment work done. You follow what I'm saying? So that's why I'm looking at it that way. The smaller the project, the less efficient it is. But where you're ordering that much, all the material for the whole thing, I think that I have it in my mind that this $300,000 will be in the range where we get some of the more important things done on the feeder. It won't be start at the power plant and do the things that need done from that point. It's going to be going and doing the things that need to be done for strengthening the system. And hopefully, then the next year, you would have, whatever you authorize is just your time and equipment, because you already have the material.
I think so.
So I'll come back with more details, but that's what I have in my head. If the material comes back a lot less or a lot more, I might shift one way or the other, but it just seems to be a starting point of having to get all of the material to work. It's one thing to get all of the material at once. And it may be a situation that we split the material in half, too. But I don't want to be ordering material every year. It'd just be nice to be able to have authorized more money and have them doing more work. I mean, we've got years of work to get done, and we're getting none of it right now, so anyway, we'll need all of that material eventually anyway. So that's the discussion I'm having.
Can you do it that way, time frame of work? What do you got?
I don't know. I mean, the schedule of work, once we have that, we would obviously be flexible, and of course, they want to do it when it fits in between their other work for efficiency. So, yeah. But he said they actually have someone from this, pretty close to this area. So he said they would actually, they would get to it, he thought, relatively quick on approval. No date, we're just having conversations at this point. But yeah, I was concerned about, okay, we decide to do this, and it's 2 years out before you start. That would not be the case. So I'll have some more information on that at the next meeting. I guess it's Sunflower's doing their little get-together thing in Wichita, the Sparks thing on their power supply and everything. I don't know if I mentioned last time that I'm going to that. It's just a conference on their the regulatory and where Sunflower's headed and all that stuff, so I'm going to attend that.
When is that, JR?
What's that?
When is that?
March 10th and 11th. And I already reserved the room, I just didn't tell you. And the Hill Trash Service contacted me. They are getting more serious about looking into side trash, doing the side pickup trash truck. That, again, I've mentioned this before, but it's basically based on the fact that they have the same problem we have, is can't keep people working or don't have enough people. And I think that'll be a difficult transition, but probably just an inevitable one for doing trash. It's just going to require people to put them in a specific place at a specific time, but they are getting to a point where they're looking at equipment real close on and talking about doing that in a couple of the communities, but primarily here. We did turn over the property to Tim Riley up there. We had 60 days. I don't know, we didn't use maybe half of it or whatever, but we turned that over and he started hauling the items off of it and doing the rest of the cleanup on it and whatever he wants to do with that. I had somebody, actually invited somebody out looking at our bucket truck situation. We're trying to figure out, we have that one large bucket truck that was here when I got here. They bought it a couple years before. It's oversized for the city. We use it for Christmas lights and some of the larger street lights, and it's a high-dollar truck with no time on it because it's too big to use. So I'm trying to figure out whether we can get enough value out of that to trade it away and get something as a backup truck more than we use. We've always had at least 2 bucket trucks. It's just way too large for what we try to do. So I'm trying to figure out a trade on that. That's part of my 5-year planning is seeing what kind of value we can get out of that as far as what equipment we want to replace with it. I still don't have the estimates on the alleys and the street pans. Brock has that information. I just haven't gotten anything back. The water read system that we utilize, the automated reading system, I think they're going to support that till the end of next year. We're about to run out of support on it. Whatever the case, there is a better reader system out there for us that will be more efficient. Currently, we're taking 2.5 to 3 days to read meters with a single person with the radio read meters. The upgraded system, which will read that more efficiently and be supported, is $17,000. It includes an iPad and new radio hardware that will read it from a further distance, do it in a different order, so it's just far more efficient. But I would like to, if you're not comfortable with just the first meeting I mentioned that, I understand that, but that's something we have to move forward with, just based on not going to be supporting the old system. Not to mention, my guy who did meter reading gave his notice a week and a half ago, so upgrading it and making it more efficient is that much more important. So I would ask you to consider authorizing me to go ahead with that system. In that request, I would also point out the clerk's office is updating the computers. This will not be usable until that's done. I just want this off the list because we know we have to do it. Once they get their computers to Windows 10 is when we would start using this system. So not to put the pressure on you, but...
That's on that clerk.
But anyway, yeah, no, it would have to tie in with that. So it's not something we could use right away, but I want it authorized off the consideration table of spending and or things to worry about, so it's just taken care of before we get into spring and other stuff. So I'd like to go ahead with that one.
Any thoughts on that, or motion to?
I guess is that the best system out there?
It is. It integrates with what we already have, so the ERTs that we have are the little radios that are down in the water meters and in the electric stuff. This is the compatible system with it. It's seamless. It just reaches further. And the old system had this stupid thing where if it missed one, you had to go back to it before it would read on the collector. This one doesn't read them in order. So instead of driving around the block 5 times because it's locked up on one, it'll keep going, and you can go back to, I know it sounds silly, I don't know how they can make computers that work that way. But yes, this is the one setup that integrates with everything we already have. And with the building software through there, so it should be, I hate the word seamless. Well, or turnkey, those are both kind of the same thing. Seamless or turnkey.
What is the price?
17,000.
So what you're saying, we're going to do it regardless.
That's correct.
Yeah, you have to do something. Or if you want to go to every meter, okay.
Yeah, we could go backwards like we used to.
Really do.
Drops on the block.
We used to have 12 guys reading meters for a day and a half because they all had to kneel down and do that. Yeah, now that we're down to 7 or 8 guys, that might be difficult.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Second. Moved by Cale, second by David. All in favor?
Dave Fleming just caught me today, kind of threw a wrench into my street planning. I keep talking about I have to do the surfacing on College Street, the chip sealing, fog sealing, and also chip sealing the Webster Street that we had to do. Dave is looking at renting at $10,000 a week a cat mill machine, which would basically reconstitute stuff like we did up there on Webster. So now I'm going to scramble inside the next couple weeks to try to come up with numbers on oil and stuff to see if we can utilize that system more up in Snobville, actually Sunnyhill. Is that where you But anyway, those streets aren't going to get done any other way because we can't get funding for them. I would hate to lose the opportunity of using the county manpower more than anything, and the ability to do this. If we hire somebody to come in and do it, it could be extremely expensive. So that might shift our direction a little bit away from the pans and alleys, which I really need to do also. We'll just have to see how the money fits. So I was kind of thinking about this earlier when we was talking about paying the bonds off earlier, thinking I've got about 3 areas for every dollar to go. But anyway, we'll try to do what's best in the best interest of the city, but there's just lots of spending options, unfortunately. But like I said, I don't know that we can get that done in any other way up there. I think it's the only way we can do it. That being said, the last thing I just wanted to mention, our ArcGIS, which is a FEMA-required mapping that we had to implement a long time ago. In fact, Scott Outman did a lot of the data transfer from the old CAD maps that I had created into a system. We now have a completely live utility marking system that's GPS. And it's really cool because wherever you're at, you have all the utility information exactly where you're at. So it's going to be quite the resource. I'm going to add a couple of iPads, portable iPads for some of the equipment, just so anybody can go to the area and know what's there instead of where's JR or Dan to find what's there. It's really going to be a handy thing for us. So I'm really happy we had enough time to work on that. Wyatt's been really good about chasing this down and making it work. So it's you might see little iPads hanging in a couple of the work pickups. If they're not watching TV, well, they might be, but they're supposed to be on this system. So. Street project, I think we got the environmental study that we had to send our information in. It's no impact. 3 bids we can take out of a procurement policy. Isn't that the same thing as a purchase policy?
Yes.
I seen that on our thing and it was almost mentioned it, but
Yes.
anyway.
Yes.
We should have, I think we finally ironed out a procurement policy that we're going to like that's everything on the streets.
So this procurement policy that he's talking about, I haven't sent out to you guys, but it's one that we have to have in place for the CDBG grant. And so we've worked on it with Justine, and we've got one ready to go for the next meeting. I'll send it out ahead of time for you guys to look at. But
Very good. The one last item, since I had somebody give notice, that individual is water certified. I always try to keep at least two people certified in water and wastewater. That's the requirements of the city of our size. I don't have any problem with the people that I'm going to require to get it. However, was gonna ask Lyle to check on the clerk's link, as far as wage offsets for certifications. If I'm gonna require these people to get them, I'd like to be in line with what they do, and then I'll come back based on what she finds as far as doing that. Yeah, we need to add some other certifications, having costs. That's all I have.
We need to have an executive session to accept the resignation of your employee.
Okay.
Probably. We always do.
Okay. Did he come in?
Not yet, but he said he would. I mean, he hasn't turned in the letter yet.
Okay.
Can you tell us what you're gonna do in the replacement?
It's advertised, not a goal. I mean, if you know somebody qualified, please ask them to apply. Yeah, thank you for that. I think I sent him your no. First, I forgot. Yeah. Right. What?
Any questions for Sarah? Not for a motion to approve the certificate. Moved by Larry. Second. Second by Derek. All in favor? Lila, quick.
I don't have too much. Let's see. The Governing Body Institute that I sent you guys some information on, Dave's expressed an interest in going. We haven't had anybody since I've been here go to this, but I'm assuming that the city would pay for this just like any conference, the room and the conference. I think it's $175 for the conference, and the room's like $120 or something like that, and then the travel. It's in Manhattan. And so he's going to go, but if anybody wants to go, just I can get you registered for that, and just let me know. And if you have any questions about it, I don't know a lot. I haven't been to this one, but it looks like a pretty good program, especially for newly elected officials. I did have a citizen call and ask for written clarification on trash bags. What is a trash bag and why a Walmart bag is not an appropriate trash bag? It's a grocery bag.
I got that same call.
So I told her I would get clarification from the council that a Walmart bag is or is not considered a trash bag. I did call Hills Trash Service. It's not actually specified in our contract, but it will be when we renew. It does say that trash needs to be bagged, and that implies in trash bags. So if that's everybody's understanding, I will put it in my minutes so that is the understanding that it is trash bags. Is?
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Don't you remember that?
No.
Bill Clinton.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Come on.
So, anyway, is that correct? It is a grocery bag, not a trash bag.
Just follow trash bag.
I mean, the word appropriate should cover that. Come on.
Yes.
Literally, how do you have to be glad?
It,
Can it be said?
I think he said it needs to be a trash bag, and a Walmart bag is a grocery bag. So, anyway, I'm addressing it.
The things that timers spent on, huh?
What happened? Yeah, don't send me down that path. So, I do have two more band shell reservations here that just like to request approval of. They're both for weddings. One is Vanessa Wick and Crockett Sports. I'm not familiar with either one of them. They are renting the band shell for May 16th for a wedding. And then we have Mercedes Ritchie and Ethan Kinner on June 6th. Just approve renting that. And already took care of the refund. I think all I have. It's been really busy, crazy busy, so I'm probably forgetting something.
Questions for Lila? Not so there. Motion to approve. Moved by Darrell, second by Cale, all in favor? Council comments. David?
Oh, I think I was asked the other day, and I don't have an answer for it. Why do we not do the steering flying anymore?
The Spearman, that was organized by Robert Grace, and it had just gotten to the point of attendance and the lack of assistance that it just had dwindled significantly. I just talked to him last week about it.
Okay. Someone asked me that the other day. Again, I don't know.
Sure. That was a great event at one time.
Did it generate funds for the town?
Yes, I mean, there was a lot of people, yeah, who come and see it. It was actually really neat. Yeah, I wish it was still going on. They used to have balloons and the old spearmen flying around. It was a great event. I hated to see that one go. Just people with the spearmans have actually gotten to such a point in getting the pilots and the planes to come. I mean, request Robert Grace, and I guarantee you within an hour and a half, you'll know everything about the spearman.
Basically, he's the one that
Yes.
pulled that over here.
It was just getting pilots and airplanes
Yeah.
to come to it, got to the point where it was really difficult.
Okay.
I don't think I am.
Alumni has requested, have they turned in any kind of application into you?
Yeah, and I was kind of holding off to see if we were going to come up with something, but just a band shell rental.
Okay. They want to walk straight up between the park and the basketball court area. I just need to give authorization to do that, basically. Any issues with that? We're looking at probably having the pool open 1 to 6 during alumni, free of charge. And then I don't know, has anybody contacted you about alumni event insurance or any of that? Gone down that road yet?
So, no, I mean, I was kind of hoping we'd make some progress on the other thing, but, I mean, what I do know is they're talking about having a beer garden of some sort, so they would need probably liability insurance for that. You guys will have to decide if you're going to waive any fees.
I haven't been able to attend the meetings so far, the last couple of meetings they've had, but there were just a couple questions that were thrown out on messaging, we get back and forth and some things. And I think you're right, I think they're going to do a beer garden. I think Riverside was going to cover it. They were going to do a concert. The meal's going to be at the high school this year. I'm not aware that that's changed or anything. So it's going to be a little different setup than it has been in the past. But I don't see any issues with it anyway. So
I mean, I think that's what we need from them is the details of what they're going to do, so you can make a decision on the liability insurance. And I know there was another group that had talked to them about doing a taste of Cheyenne County as part of the alumni, but Glory didn't think it was actually going to be part of be sponsored by the Alumni Association, but Cale thought it was, so there's some confusion there. I don't know. It would be an event earlier in the day, and so if it's not part of the alumni and it's a separate event, they can rent the facility too if they need it or whatever. But that's very unclear. I don't know what the status is on that.
has Cale come in and rented the band show?
Yeah, he filled out an application for the band shell, yes. From 7 to 11 p.m. He didn't put a date on here, but I think it's June 13th.
No, it's Saturday. It's not June 13th.
No.
Oh, you're right. No, it'll be June 20th.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
It's the third weekend, it's Father's Day okay with you?
So 2020. Okay.
I can check on that for sure and let you know.
Yeah. I don't know where I got the 13th. It might have been from, but yeah, it's the old application that he's got. So, and I talked to him today and told him we were working on something new, and so I'll keep in communication with him, but we're going to have the details of, but I think they have a meeting on March 11th to finalize some of that. What's that?
Oh, I was just trying to remember. Yeah, it's on March 11th. Timing wise, I just haven't really made those meetings. We've got applications out for, or started taking applications for swimming pool stuff and trying to get on top of that. I can't say for a fact yet that we have a pool manager yet, but we have a very good prospect, let's put it that way. Applications, I think, they put them in the paper,
Mm-hmm.
and Bruce said he's gonna get them up to school. I don't know, we'll have to have a meeting in probably March to kind of look at things and see how everybody does after the season and stuff. So if you know anybody's looking for a lifeguard job, encourage them. That's all I got.
What? Sorry, what did I?
I don't have anything, we're sitting here like,
Well,
motion to adjourn.
So we need 2 minutes executive session to discuss employee status. 1 minute. 1 minute.
Did you get I think you said you had to receive that.
A verbal one. We got to go.
Okay.
It's definitely, yeah.
Okay, so, all right.
I'm going to go into executive session for personnel issue with everybody in the room, coming out at 8:30, 8:40. Anything else I need to put in?
Non-elected personnel for employee status.
Employee status.
Second by Kale, all in favor? Okay, now go.
What do you want to say?
You expect.
Accept
Oh, I didn't know what that.
the resignation of, oh my goodness, who's going to second that?
Second.
Third.
Third.
Okay.
Is, next month gonna be a problem? You were gone, and Scott was gone? That's the last meeting, possibly, I don't know yet. Oh, okay, so, yeah, okay. First week back, first meeting in March, Scott should be back.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And I know he had an issue with